Right, ready to go.
Ready to go. Welcome everybody. We have the public forum. The first speaker today is Hugh McIntyre from Iceland Line. Hugh, I remind you, you have 5 minutes when you're ready, sir.
Sorry, I've just got so many bits of paper on this thing on the right one.
Just 5 minutes starting now.
Murray just in mind suggested I should tell you that he just sent how many kilos home? 40 or what because of running. And how many days have we lost in the last fortnight? So just sort of get in that model.
Thank you, Murray.
I've had more than my fair share of words already probably on this, so I'll just make this very brief. I wanted to emphasise. It's been a pretty long project, 20 odd years from start. During this period, there have been a lot of delays. Cut a long story short, Council has a heat exchange arrangement installed, which increasingly will save on power costs, and we're still trying to get our roof. I don't think there's much doubt about the community being in favour of the project. There was a consultation exercise went, I think, in 15-16. I see the results of that. As pointed out in the council report, there are options regarding funding, rates and reserves. Obviously, there's always a tendency not to want to deplete reserves with your council or anyone. So, but maybe I could remind all members that assuming the subdivision that you're currently doing turns a profit, then there should be, I would imagine, more funds to go into the reserves held by you. I think it's fair to say that everyone in here supports the proposal, and the issue really comes down to timing. The report states that the result of the community consultation wouldn't be available until the 1st of July of 2023, I think. Am I right in saying that? So that means that the construction really couldn't start until the following year after that. A more relevant issue, as far as we're concerned, is that until we've got a commitment from the Vincent Community Board, we can't proceed with that funding application to either the CLT or to the Lotteries Board. We've actually got money from has come from Otago Community Trust, 2,000. We haven't got it, but it's been approved. So, given those delays and the process people are going through, is that any funding approvals wouldn't be able to be approved until after September 2023, because that's when the next time we'd manage to get in front, I would imagine, of the Lottery Board, subject to, and assuming that you don't tell us until the 1st of July next year that we can actually get the funding. If we get a commitment of funding, does mean I say a commitment, not necessarily a check. We're able to lodge our 2 funding applications, and we will have approval for those by the end of September. Then we have plenty of time to assess what our additional funding that we may have to apply for, and then we would be in a position to commence building, assuming the process goes through in the spring of 2023. The benefit to us of getting some form of commitment is simply that we can proceed their successful tender immediately on the planned permits required, secure access to materials, and hopefully mitigate to some extent the contingency, make the new library numbers as a contingency, 30% calculated for the building there, or 30% of our building would wipe out half of your grant. So you can see it's reasonably important we do that. Option 1, which you've been asked to approve, does not, in my opinion anyway, provide a commitment to grants 400,000. It provides a commitment to note our application that will be funded from either rates or reserves, and that a decision will be confirmed after consultation with the community as part of the annual plan consultation for the year ending 30th of June 24. And I don't think that's going to be sufficient for our funders to give us the approval for their money in a timely manner. So really, that's majorly what I've got to say. I would say in conclusion, I want to put on record that I think that we've been treated badly with this funding application. We requested advice back in November or so to as to how we would go about getting the grant that we're after. We were given that information, followed that up and made our application for inclusion in the LPP. Saw the item in the draft plan and assumed that we'd done what was needed for the moment. When we checked earlier this year, because time was coming up when we wanted to do it, then we were told that the funding had been taken out of the LPP. We advised, I will confess though, that we got a letter from the Mayor down the very bottom of it, which I didn't notice until this morning when I was checking. There was a reference to the fact that the application, if you like, had been referred to the council staff to prepare a report for future reference. Unfortunately, didn't say that it be pulled out of the schedule.
Thanks.
Which we naively thought that it was still there.
Thank you.
So we we came to make a request for the funding. We were told that it wasn't there anymore. The other thing, I think that the request that you made to the council staff to have that report was put on hold, and it's now surfacing as part of this discussion.
Thank you, Hugh. Members, have we got some questions of Hugh before we carry on? Lily?
I have, Hugh. My understanding is that the previous consultation was on the heat transfer system and the whole. And also that the 400,000 is our significant policy where we need to consult. So my question is, if we approve the 400,000 subject to consultation, what effect would that have on the funding that we have on that now?
Well, food networks. I mean, I don't know how the funders would interpret it, really. I mean, you're not really saying, yes, if by some very odd chance consultation turned out that people didn't want it, I honestly don't think that's going to be the case. But whether that's enough for them to accept, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you wrote in the letter and said, we are putting this at funding we expect to be passed, that might be enough. I don't know. I can't answer them. But all I'm saying is that what you're over here is not a commitment to us 400,000. We need to know it's coming before we can engage.
Any other questions from members?
Sorry, the question regarding the consultation. I thought, I didn't check that one, was that was the whole scheme, but just the item. Okay.
Thank you, Hugh. Welcome.
Yeah. We're just as eyes online, we're a frequent visitor to your on the table. And thank you very much for hearing me again. I'm here to speak in favour, but speak in support of the recommendation in your agenda later in the day. Funding for some stories. The public, but also chairman of the board, here to support that recommendation, as I understand it. And I'm going to give you a quick update on where we are and a bit of a statement about what you're getting for your money. You've heard that before, but it doesn't hurt to repeat it. We're back from the 20th, from next Monday to weekdays 10 to 4. The hibernation has been short. In my perspective, very hibernatory. I'll be there nearly every day during that period. And we've got a significant exhibition, the Winter Stellar exhibition, second year, opens at the Henderson Gallery on Friday. I hope you've all seen an invitation for that. With His Worship doing honours at the opening, I understand. We've got a National High School touring exhibition the week later in the Hiki Gallery. We've got Irish music in the week of the Ireland versus All Blacks game in Dunedin. So all of you with Irish in your heritage need to be there for that. We've got a couple of Wayward Divas later in July, Jazz Night in August, and a Blossom Festival Fringe in September. We've made good use of the hibernation, such as it was. We've done a comprehensive work systems analysis as part of our review of management and governance. And are about to put that into practice as we go to market for a director. We'll focus on the collections and exhibitions. Our collection, the museum, as people know it, has been on the back burner for far too long. A bit of comment about what you get for your money. As a grant maker for 9 years at the Central Lakes Trust, there are some ex-Central Lakes Trust trustees in the room. I often ask myself and other trustees, what do we get for this grant? What difference will it make? Sometimes the answer was clear, sometimes not so much. If you're asking yourselves, thinking about the recommendation later in the agenda, what about this grant? Here's my answer. You get a museum, and you get the museum and culture centre this community deserves. You get a professional, competent team who look after our stories, artefacts and cultural values like no one else can. You get an active art gallery supporting local art and entertainment. You get community outreach, school liaison. Our collections and the stories we are able to tell will be significant resources for the new school history curriculum. We'll see primary and secondary students in our institution much more than we have in the past. You get the best research room in the region, the superb collection of historical photographs, oral histories, documents and books. And so if you're asking yourself, what do you get for your grant? I think that's a pretty impressive list. Your grant makes an enormous difference. My final statement, it keeps our doors open. We will still do the work really hard to break even. It's difficult to make up a quarter of a budget in the short term, and that's the effect of the council withdrawing their fund. We've still got a big funding hole to fill, but I'm maybe naively and maybe even foolishly regarding it as a challenge rather than a risk, which is why we're going out to the market for our paid professional. We really, if we were being rational, we wouldn't be. That's my comment.
Thank you, Malcolm. Members, any questions?
Malcolm, could you clarify the difference in terms of, from the museum's point of view, between a director and a manager?
Well, there are some pretty good questions. We hired general managers in the past and expected them to do everything inside the building, and we haven't been able to achieve that. It's too much for one person. General manager role in an institution like that, where there are really 3 or 4 separate enterprises under the one roof, is setting some. And people have either failed or bailed out frequently in the recent past. I think that's our fault, not theirs. One solution, one result of the work systems analysis that I've been and other people have been contributing to over the last couple of months is identify where the work really is in that organisation and map the jobs to the work. So rather than asking the young professional to do everything for everyone and about 160% job, we're going to break it into at least 2. And the first step is to hire a director with a museum focus who will focus on the artefacts, the collection, the stories, and the material in our extensive storage. And we'll break out the management side and deal with that separately.
it's something that hasn't been done before. It's a little bit academic, speaking as an academic or a theoretical management specialist. But I think it might be the answer to an endemic problem, be the way to solve the problem that we haven't solved well in the past. Good question.
Thank you, Malcolm. Anybody else? Yes.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Are you happy? You've read the recommendations?
Yes. The recommendation is appropriate.
Thank you.
I understand that, I understand the limits of your budget. I understand that the recommendation is for a significant chunk of that. To some extent that crowds out other applications, and that's your chief executive's point about transparency and openness. But my balancing argument to that is that this is a major community asset. It survives or it doesn't on the size of your grant. Your grant will keep our doors open, but no more. So we're in your hands. If say, at one end of the extreme, you said, no, we're not going to fund this institution, we'd be out of business tomorrow. Off the doors of the museum. You keep us going. And I think the community supports that. I'm sure the community supports that. Of course, we love more. We need more. But I understand your limits and the generosity of your approach so far. I think that keeps us going. It's not a trivial thing, it keeps us going.
Thank you.
Thank you for keeping going. Jim, back to you.
Thanks, Malcolm.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
Yeah.
Last but not least, Mr. Ken Churchill. 5 minutes starting now.
Hello. I wouldn't be surprised if you were doing that. Just kidding.
The clock starts when you sit down in that chair.
Okay, I'll put the glasses on first.
Okay, come on.
5 minutes, but then I'll sit down. Yes, this is will. Mr. Chairman and board members, thanks for the opportunity. It's almost a privilege to be back week after week after week, but this is not quite the same subject, but it's to do with the survey that's just out, to do with the half mile. I hope no one's offended by me sending them an email to underline or underscore what I'm about to say. Sometimes when you come and speak, it's gone. You read in the minutes, Mr. Churchill spoke about the half mile, whatever, it's gone, it evaporates. So I hope no one's offended that I did. I didn't expect any replies, obviously. I've found that both the preamble and the actual survey are both deficient and biased. I've got 9 points. These are my reasons. The continued use of the word wilding when it's been long verified that the trees were planted, particularly along the north boundary. 23 is verified. The other one, which the question 8 in the survey, which is a bit of a bugger of a thing in my view, do you wish to see the wilding pines cut down? To me, it's like asking someone if they're still kicking the dog or you're still drinking heavily. You can't get a right answer out of it. I haven't filled out the survey yet. I'm about to. But when I say I want to retain wilding pines, it looks like I want wilding pines to remain within the district. I hate wilding pines. I hate them with a passion. I used to pull them out at Tongariro National Park donkeys years ago. So, you know, that's no good. The other thing in the survey in the preamble, there's absolutely no mention of carbon sequestration over a period of time. It's an issue, and it's an issue facing all of us. I'm not advocating that you leave every single pine tree standing in the country because of carbon sequestration. I think the people filling out the survey needed to know. The other question about the mitigation of the wildlife, particularly about the schist gecko, and there's recently planted natives up there by volunteers, which I don't know if you do or do not know about, but around some of the periphery. It's a great way to go. A bloody great crawler machine walking all over it. What's the mitigation for that? The other thing is that in that survey, there's no question about any sort of compromise. For instance, a staged removal while the neighbours are established. No one can answer that in the survey. Or for instance, leave the trees planted by Dick Shorman along the north boundary. You took a 5-metre strip all the way from Shorman Road right to the very back. You create a noise buffer, a sound buffer. People on the old golf course road will be protected, and you could plant out the rest of the half mile. But the thing that really is so wrong is there's no mention to the public whatsoever that the stumps, which could be up to 7 as high, will be left. And even Boff and Missle's report, no one has showed them. There's no picture, no artist's impression, nothing. And to me, that's absolutely dishonest. That's a dishonesty. There's no mention of the status of the section of the reserve that is bound by my neighbour between Shorman Road and Arundel Road. And I use the word leased in quotes to the adjacent landowner. Are they to come out? It's a short part of the reserve, and if you look on the plan, you'll find it's part of the reserve. And even in the stuff that's put out, no mention of it. And the other thing, of course, is there's no mention of how the mulched slash is going to be mitigated in terms of wind, rain, seed dispersal, trucked away. I don't think you want to use it in any of your gardens around here because it's full of all sorts of seed, but probably pines. The other thing, there's no mention of viable car parking in that, none at all. I had a report from a person that's a Thornton Hogan engineer, used to work for Alpine, well, Thornton Hogan, but the subsidiary of it. Waka Katahi, there's no way you'll get a car park, at her view, his view, at the far end. So to enhance it, everyone wants to enhance it, it's a park cars. And the best option is probably in down on the corner by Shorman Road. The other thing in the which I'd like the board members to look at, that they may, is your section 3.3 of the CODC Tree Policy 2020 talks about what trees can do. And I wonder if some people write this stuff and never ever read it again. And I just want to touch on this. If I get cut off by time, I understand someone might give me a wee extension. I must be running close to the wind. Over these last 9 months of this debacle, the most alarming fact I've discovered in all of this is there's no reserve management plan as per section 41 of the Reserves Act 77. Gordon confirmed that to me on Friday, and I appreciate that. And it's hard to believe that this council, that council, just hasn't done it. I mean, even prior to October last year. The Act's very clear, and the word shall means just that. And I hope no one took this the wrong way in the email I sent them, but DOC have a very good guide on how to understand the Reservation Reserves Act, their section 6. For people like me who aren't Philadelphia lawyers, although we think we are sometimes. Irrespective of the outcome of the survey, I don't believe any of the trees should be felled or can be felled until there's a reserve management plan and all that goes with it in place. Thank you. Did I get in under 5?
No,
Thanks, man.
but I could see you were winding up. I let you go. No, I let you go, winding
Thank
down.
you, I appreciate it. I mean, you can go as quick as you like, but it's just the reason that I put an email out.
And on behalf of the members, we do appreciate the emails, and we do the, now Lily, questions.
So Ken had mentioned a couple of concerns he had, and I have emailed council, but I just don't have the reply yet. But he was concerned that there are people that aren't able to use computers, and a quick conversation with Paula was going to be that there'd be hard copies in the council and the library, and perhaps on the central app, and I don't know if that's happened yet. And also he did mention about the preamble having the wilding pines, and I did make a question about that, and I don't know what's happened.
Okay, noted, and I'll ask governance to follow up on those queries on your behalf. Any other members' questions? Any comments? That being the case,
Thanks very much for the time once again.
Thanks, Ken, appreciate it.
Okay. Cheers.
Well, everybody, kia ora, welcome. We'll get on to the rest of the meeting now with item 3 on our agenda is the confirmation of the minutes. Oh, yes, sorry, we do have an apology from Charlene. I think it's completely forgotten. And a second? Thank you. Now, some move the confirmation of the true and correct record of our last meeting. Ian, second. Roger, all in favour? Aye. Just remind everybody of the declaration of interests. You may notice that my partner, Christine, works at the library and we have an item discussed in the library. I don't believe I'm conflicted. I just want it noted that I have an interest. Are you happy for me to stay in the chair when we discuss that, members?
Yep.
Thank you.
Also got another interest, which is the trustee of the Central Otago District Arts Trust.
We noted for the next meeting. First item on our is an amendment to the agenda, and this item has been added in accordance with item 19.12 of the standing orders. The reason that it was not on the agenda was because staff were working through the process following Russell's recent resignation. In the meantime, the agenda was published in accordance with the law. The item could not be delayed as this decision is required by law, and this is item 22412 amendment. It's the Vincent Community Board's extraordinary vacancy, and it's from Saatchi, but Saatchi is unfortunately in the process of travelling back from Dunedin, so I'm going to ask Wayne to talk to this report. Thank you.
So yes, section 117 of the Local Electoral Act 2001 talks about when there's an extraordinary vacancy, as has occurred. Since it's within 1 year of drawing elections, there's no need for a by-election. However, members are allowed to choose whether they want to nominate someone to take this position or leave the position vacant. At this stage, the recommendation is to leave it vacant simply because there's only 2 more meetings after this one, and to go through a process of attempting to fill this vacancy would mean maybe they might get, the person may get 1 meeting or maybe not even any meetings. So in fact, it probably end up being a waste of their time to do that. So that's why I recommend, that's why the report is recommending that the vacancy is not filled and remains vacant.
Members, any comments?
I'm happy to move.
Roger, second. Yeah. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. Item 22.4.3, the ice inline roof funding. Gordon's. Okay. No, we've moved it around a bit. Okay, does Gordon, the floor is all yours.
Again, Mr. Chairman, so I guess it's who's coming in a little bit more information to this report from Ice and Line's perspective. And as you can see, yes, the process has been around for some time, bring forward the different aspects of the now 3-stage process of upgrading the Ice and Line facilities at Molyneux Park. So I guess I'm just happy that answer any questions.
Members, do we have any questions of the report author?
I'm just really concerned because it never fails to amaze me how our volunteers keep going through hopes to provide innovative assets for our community, and I just wanted to support them today, but I understand there are issues with the significance process and the fact that we haven't consulted on the actual roof itself. So I'm going to say, I would have liked to have said today that I wanted to change B to approve the 400k towards the construction of a roof, fund from general reserves, and delete D for the consultation, but I understand there are issues there, so.
Yes. I'll let Leanne address that.
We have heard from one of the key parties of the funding that they would consider if we have a resolution that says it is subject to consultation.
Query was put to Hugh earlier in the public forum whether, because we are obliged to go out and quote and consult on the 400,000, if at this meeting we gave an agreement in principle to 400k subject to that consultation, Central Lakes Trust would consider that manner as far as their funding application is concerned.
Well, then could we put it along the lines of approving 400k to the construction of a roof to fund from general reserves subject to consultation? We have to take out.
No, because
General reserves, because you
Yeah.
presuppose it.
we need
Yeah.
to leave both those options in there, because that's what we'll go out and consult on, because this is going to have a significant impact on rates if it is raised as a loan, right?
But that's a big move forward if we've heard from a funder to say that.
Agree, and if they will support, agree in principle to the 400,000 subject to consultation. Louise.
Yeah, so they've actually said that they can receive an application and can grant it and can move by resolution that is subject to consultation in the 23-24 budget.
They can move quite quickly now.
Does everybody understand what that means? It basically means that we're not stopping Hugh and his team from going ahead and completing their funding round. We will still be able to do the consultation as per our significance policy for next year's annual plan. It should not curtail. It's getting rather nasty out there, folks. And it shouldn't curtail ISIM 9 proceeding with their project.
By going that way, you give the community the opportunity of either doing a one-off grant, which hits the rates there in the whole year, or you're going to reserve fund or own funding means they pay it back. Reserve means you're going to forfeit your reserves and cannot be reused.
So,
Or a combination.
Or a combination.
And
We've done that in a number of our runs through the current long-term plan.
if you look at, again, like the community hub out at Overcow, the purchase of the hospital in Manitoto, they were all done through a mixture of grant, loan and reserve funding. But we were obliged to go back to our ratepayers and give them that option.
So if we changed B to, sorry, I'm having to say.
All right, you're jumping ahead of the gun.
If we changed B to notes in line Central Incorporated request approves in principle.
Subject to.
Subject to, yeah, leave the other, agrees to consult with community, agrees that it would either be funded from general reserves or additional costs and ratepayers, but agrees in principle.
Going to ask Wayne to. Can you get something up on the screen of the amendment from where you are?
Yeah.
Put the amendment up there once.
Okay, so this is what it currently is. So what you're saying is in B, putting it somewhere in there in principle.
No,
And B,
Yeah.
just hang on, last.
B, agree in principle to Central Incorporated request for up to 400,000.
So from there. Yes.
LD.
Oh, it's Aldi. Oh, look, I knew I was gonna get that wrong. Agrees in principle, so that's it, agrees in principle, item.
Can I just ask,
Just-
am I, sorry,
Just one moment, I want to get this resolution up here before we start talking about it, and that's.
Reason principle to fund.
Yeah,
Operated.
Fund, item one.
yeah, to fund,
Operated.
$400,000 towards, and take away the word grant, because that's going to come into the next part of your recommendation. No, so this will be subject to consultation of legal.
Oh, 400,000. Actually,
Subject to, wouldn't it be?
Yeah,
Part?
yeah,
Be
subject-
comma,
Comment, subject to,
consultation. And
2023
24 annual plan.
plan.
24. Long time ago.
Be like in there. And then deleting CD.
No,
No.
I think you need to leave CD, but we can probably agree to delete D.
It would be, notes that grant will either be funded from.
General reserves or be additional.
No,
cost.
because it could be debt.
Well, debt, yeah, okay, then it could be notes, debt, comma, general reserves or additional cost to ratepayers.
Or a
Can I just
combination.
suggest that you might be limiting yourself by listing that
Yeah,
as to your opportunity as to how you do it.
just take C out.
just take it out.
Take it out. Yeah, take it out.
Consultation will.
And I don't know that you need D either.
No, you don't need D because you've already said that.
So,
Right, Lynn, questions?
am I allowed to ask two gentlemen here if that would cause them any major issue? I'm reading Q and
Probably no. But if you, no, you can't, but if you listen to what Hugh said, he did say directly he didn't need the cheque straight away. And we've had word from one of the funders who was saying that our agreement in principle should not hinder their application process. And I think, I don't know about, I'm not a bank manager, but I think something like that could probably be good leverage for a bank loan anyway, because we're guaranteeing it, subject to. And the confidence that Isoline have, Isoline have,
Guarantee event.
yeah. I'll personally guarantee a bank loan.
400,000.
Yeah.
Meeting's recorded, Mark.
Right, so, if we're all happy with that, somebody like to put that motion, please.
I would.
Lindley, seconder.
I'll second it.
Roger, all in favour?
Right.
Against? Motion's carried. Thank you, staff. Thank you, members.
That's what we read.
Christina. Item 22.4.2. The library renovation project. Oh. Both ears. Okay, the floor is yours, guys.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So the purpose of this report is to consider the concept themed and whether to recommend to council that the additional budget required to proceed with this Alexandra Library renovation project as per the concept plans is externally funded by the Three Waters Better Off support package. So you'll see where we're at is at the concept plan stage, and that's why we're coming to the community board, and then we'll be going to council for approval. This is through with the Vincent community, and then the recommendation will be taken to council to ratify. You'll see the concept plans from page 23 of the report, and you're probably very familiar with those now because you've read it. And just to highlight, in the background, before we even got to concept plans, there was quite a lot of work done by the project team, and Gareth is the project owner and Bruce is the project sponsor. Going back and talking to other libraries in the across New Zealand, and also looking at previous public surveys that we've done considering this library, talking with the library staff, and looking at it from a building point of view, so if we're ever going to re-tenant it, or from the library point of view, from the activities and also our information services. So it was quite a bit of work done before even heading towards this concept theme stuff. Some of the key factors there that went into the reason why it is so much more than the budget was around the fact that we're trying to achieve an internal toilets, which is quite tricky in this space if you're familiar with the space. We've got a separate staff room, which is really important to the staff to have that separate on the mezzanine floor upstairs at the back. Also looking at it from a sustainability point of view, trying to get the double glazing in there as well. Whenever we're sort of shutting down for a big contract work project like this, it's the opportunity to make those double glazing. So we've looked at all of that. We've come up with this plan. We're coming to the project costs is at concept stage, and just to reiterate, and I do this every time, it's like a funnel, and we're at the concept stage, so there is a big range where we can still get to as to the actual project cost. The next stage is we get to the detailed design, and then we actually get to a contract, and it's Gareth said to me one day, which is very true, you don't even know the project costs until the time the invoices are, which is very true. So we're right at the top of the funnel here, and the cost estimate by our QS has come in at over $1 million, so 1,035,000. When looking at how we can achieve this for our community, we've actually got an opportunity through the Three Borders Better Off support package. I'm not sure whether the Vincent Community Board has been across this. Page 19 of my report, which states that Three Waters Better Off support package is an investment by the Crown into the future of local government and community wellbeing, and in recognition of the significance of the local government sector, of the transfer of responsibility of the water services delivery. So Central Otago District Council will receive 12.84 million from this Better Off package, and it comes to us in 2 tranches. And I'm recommending through this report that we achieve this for the community by promoting to council that we put this project forward for tranche 1, which has a total of 3.21 million, and the applications have to be submitted by the 30th of September. Also, as part of the recommendations, we've said that if the funding application to the Three Waters Better Off support package is not successful, then we go back to the drawing board, and the concept plan is not approved, and council staff to just progress with the cosmetic upgrade, which was originally budgeted for. That sort of gives you a bit of a summary. Is there any questions?
The actual plan of the desired revamp would go out for public consultation, I take it. I'm just trying to compare it with other libraries, you know, like the Dunedin Public and university libraries and so on that I've been in terms of modern needs, etc. So that finest level of detail will be sorted out at a later stage, I think.
No, as part of the project plan, this is the point where the community board gets the say. We've already gone out to the public and we've had the survey done, and we've got that feedback and already this design. One really big thing that came out was trying to achieve that into the toilet. That was the absolute key. We also, as I said, went around to other libraries, and that was really informative, and sort of what worked really well, what isn't working at the end, and there's been some really neat libraries out there recently that have been done. So I've read lots about libraries recently. Yeah.
I think it's a really vital upgrade to the existing facilities. I think it really is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
No,
Sorry, Linda, you can get it up myself. Okay, I just, this is kind of like two questions, but I'm just going to jam them into one for you. So I guess first question, how confident are you with that application to the Three Waters Better Off package? And if there's shortfall from that, then what? What's next?
Well, probably Gareth is probably more over the Three Waters.
So, and she's pretty confident we could decide on the line. So, if there's a shortfall, then we're heading back to option 2, which is the.
Well, option 2 being just your cosmetic.
Yeah, so basically we're asking for the funding.
Yes.
There's no room for, give us a little bit.
Oh, it's either yes or no with
Yeah.
it. Interesting.
Along those lines, what happens if the Three Waters is repealed?
Questions 19th of the law.
Gareth, I'd have to totally agree with you on, my experience is that once you've got a government check, their ability to take it back off you is pretty difficult. Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm happy to move it.
You happy with motions?
Yep.
Of course, this is just again folks, just to remind, because the library actually is a council asset, and it's sitting in our patch, we're just recommending to council that they approve the renovation project as outlined. Now, do we have a seconder? Roger, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Cheers, guys, thank you. Item 22.4.4, funding for the Alexandra District Museum. Rebecca. Ta-da! Look at that. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. And I've just got a few comments there to my report, if that's okay. And I've also provided one with a draft resolution that he's going to put up on the board for us. So as the report states, the application for the second round of the grants process closed in late March. At that time, ADMI had gone through a staffing change, as had we, with me coming into the role about that same time. And due to those two things, there was sort of a disconnect, and we didn't get an application in from ADMI, and we met relatively early on in my tenure with Malcolm to discuss that, and suggested to him that he put in a late application for your consideration. So that's how the report has come through today. Because there hasn't been an increase in the overall grants budget, I have not recommended an increase in funding, but I've suggested that they're funded at the same rate as they were last year, which is their $80,000. And then I talk in the report about the one-off funding to align it. And so with the introduction, with the last year, you'll recall with the hardship grants, it was to try and align our organisations that tend to come to us for operational funding, so that they were no worse off if a decision if they will apply for the first round of funding in June, July, well, we open at 1 July. Decisions are usually made September, October, and so then it would be payday of 1 November, and it's to keep them through that gap that we're talking about. So that's what that alignment funding is. Council considered 2 similar applications from the Heritage Trust and the Central Taylor District Arts Trust for a similar type, just getting them into that 1 November alignment. So then if you agree with that premise, then it's deciding where that funding comes from. And there's 2 options presented. One is to use the grants budget, which would then reduce the amount available to other organisations to $13,333. And in this case, I've suggested that you consider using the board's general reserve fund. That's not something we would normally do for grants funding, because you should stick with your budget. But because this is an extraordinary circumstance, it's something that we've put on the table, but it is something that you need to consider when debating this item. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you for the comprehensive report, Rebecca, and we do appreciate the fact is your recommendation to bring ADMI in line with the funding rounds that you used reserves, because that then allows those other groups who come with expectation of support from this table will not be out of pocket. We may need to consider during the annual plan process an increase in the grants fund. And that's something we will deal with during the annual plan process. Members, any comments or questions?
Wayne might want to put the resolution.
Wayne's going to put the resolution up and then we look at this and we can discuss it. Lily?
Can I just say, I'd like to recommend that we give, my comment before about volunteers jumping through hoops, provide assets for our community. I just want to see them get some support here. And I'd like to give them the 82,000 we've asked for plus the 26,666 for the 4 months, so 108,667. 14 months with the amount, the 82,000 they've asked for plus the 26,667. Total of 100.
And that would bring them to November 1, 2023, correct?
But I would suggest that if you did want to increase the 80 to 82, that comes out of the grant budget, that doesn't come out of the reserve.
The extra 2.
If you're of a mind, if there was a collective mind to do that.
From the grant budget.
And what would that take the remaining grants budget down to?
You've got $120,000, so it would bring it down to 38,000. And you, and I provided in the report a table of the grants that you provided last time, they equaled 34.
Oh.
Can I just clarify, B is actually out of next year's budget, isn't it? The 82.
E, yes.
Sorry, E.
Yes.
Cool.
2022, 20.
Oh, yeah, I see it now, sorry. I was looking at one.
So if you were of a mind to move away from the recommendation of 80 and make it 82, I'd suggest that you did it in E.
Yeah.
So the one-off adjustments coming out of reserves, the balance funding them through to November 2023 is coming out of the actual grant budget, which is putting pressure on the grants budget. We have an opportunity in the annual plan process next year to increase the grants budget if we're of mind.
Yes.
Yes.
So this coming year, no, because it
No.
won't be adopted, but the next year, yes.
So we understand, is it quite clear of that?
And noting that 26,667 is coming out of your general reserves, not your grants, because your grants budget reserves is already in deficit.
It's already in deficit, so it's, yeah, general reserves.
So, so in D, it's B, isn't it? That's fine, that kind of stuff. But that's the one that you're, the either or, that's the one.
Once we have a mover.
Yeah, but that's what, yeah. That's what you're talking about.
And you're going to change the, and Linda would like to change the 80 to 82.
Couldn't B also be changed to incorporate that extra 2,000?
That's the 82 there.
No, that's just getting it up to
26,
November.
yeah.
D, sorry, choice that's in green is the additional 4 months plus 2,000.
So that 2,000 essentially is 12 months, so it certainly wouldn't be 2,000 to C. It's for the new, from the 1 November.
And E is basically putting the money into the budget for the 22-23 financial year, which starts July 1. Do we understand what we're doing? It's critical that you answer, but also I'd like to know that those who are about to. So basically giving them a one-off grant to bring them to the end of this financial year. Sorry, 31st of October this year, which is, it brings them in line, and we're approving a grant the next financial year, which takes them through to 1 November 2023.
Correct, and that is then they're in line with
And then the
the,
line with
with the grants, because it takes that long for the grant to get.
And meanwhile, there
funded.
is gives the ADMI board and its members plenty of time to lobby staff as far as making this a line item as opposed to making it a contestable item through the grants budget. With all the associated checks and balances put onto that, which will be something for the new elected members to discuss.
Well, I'm happy to move.
Are you happy, lovely, is somebody happy to second that? Not just happy to second, I'll put that to everybody. Aye?
Aye.
Against? Carry. Thank you, Matt, thank you, Susan. Next item on the agenda is 22.4.5, the financial reports for the period ending 31st of March 2022.
Martin, excuse me, could I be excused for 5 minutes? I've just got to take.
Fine,
Sorry.
so you're not interested in the money side of
I
things?
am, but I.
Where does that leave us for?
That's
No, fourth of one, no, fine, go.
I won't, I'll be as quick as I can.
Okay, no problem.
Oh, I'm not going to come down.
All the way down there.
It is a very long way when there's no one
I know.
beside you. The Vincent financial report for the period ending 31st. I take the paper as being read. The Vincent will finish the March quarter with an unfavourable operating variance of 1.7. This is predominantly due to the budget alignment of the Dunstan Park subdivisions, creating the unfavourable variance for the cost. Recognised as costs directly related to stage 1 of the subdivision, and this is offset by the land sales and revenue. Other operating income is trending lower than the budget, however, this has been offset. And capital expenditure for the March quarter has a favourable variance of 373,000 and 34% of total revised budget being spent. And especially in the parks and area, with a lot of projects get for completion in the final quarter. And we've got a couple of projects at this point in time which are being carried forward into the next financial year, and these include the Alexandra Community Centre and the Molyneux Stadium projects. Are there any questions?
Donna, thank you. Any questions? Members? Clear as mud?
The Alexandra Community Centre includes the actual hall itself, does it, or just the centre adjacent?
It does.
I believe it includes the hall as well, so it's all of the projects revolving around that.
Building.
And that's all the like bars and work going on at prison. Thank you, Don. I'll move forward and accept the report from the second Tim. Ian, I should say.
That's right.
That's rough, isn't it? Sorry, my apologies to Ian for confusing him with his worship. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your worship, Tim.
Thank you, Matt. I'll read this one. I can advise that the final investigator's report into the Code of Conduct complaint made against me by former Deputy Chair Russell Garbutt was received today. The investigator has found in favour of Russell's complaint to the extent that the subject of the complaint is found to be non-material and assessed against the definition of materiality in the Code, but that my actions were improper and breached some of the obligations created by the Code. I've accepted the finding in its totality and have written a full letter of apology to Russell. I've also offered to meet face-to-face to apologise if he wishes for that to occur. I accept fully that I should not have sent the email that caused this issue, and I'm disappointed with myself for having done so. I also apologise to you, the board, for this situation and that my part, and the part that my action took in Russell not being attained. I attended and spoke at the Groundswell Taxpayers Union meeting in Alexandra last Monday night. Approximately 200 people attended to hear from various speakers on the Three Waters reforms. I was offered and took the opportunity to speak, and despite the best efforts of some, I was given a fair hearing, even though what I had to say was not what many wanted to hear. I'm also anticipating, also as written earlier on, I also today received copies of two petitions presented at that meeting from probably 30 people, being that council withdraw from LGNZ and that council hold a referendum into joining the reforms. I anticipate presenting those petitions to council at our next meeting on July the 6th. I also presented to Alexander Provis on the same subject earlier this month. I attended the Aurora drop-in session held in Alexandra last month. These reports to the community are a requirement on Aurora under the customised price path granted by the Commerce Commission last year. I've got to say, I'm somewhat surprised at the low number of people in attendance, although that may have picked up after 5 as I had to leave. In fairness to Aurora, the information sharing and efforts to engage were very good, and the benefit of having a drop-in format as opposed to a public meeting was plainly obvious, with one-on-one discussions imparting much more information both ways than can occur at a traditional public meeting. I expressed to representatives of the company the continued concern on hearing from our people regarding unplanned outages, particularly in Omako and Clyde, something they appear to be already very conscious of. And huge congratulations must go out to Alexander Orman and Carla Sanders on being made a member of the New Zealand Order of Merit and the Queen's birthday on this. Their work of almost a decade since founding Sticks and Stones has changed and almost certainly saved lives. And this recognition is well earned. It's my report.
Any questions of this worship? There being none. Thank you, Tim. I'll move we accept your report. And I'll second that. All in favour? Yes. My report. We had a council meeting on Wednesday, June the 1st. Unfortunately, due to ill health, I wasn't there for the whole of the meeting, but I was there for the community grants applications, which went through unopposed. I think I probably knew the word. And I think probably the thing which for us here in Vincent was the Plan Change 19, which is the plan change which affects the residential chapter review and rezoning of various areas following on from the spatial plan went through and was approved. So that process is now underway. A couple of hearings panel meetings, but mostly concerning, there's a big one coming up tomorrow, quite controversial subdivision, which I will talk about at the next meeting. But I have done a couple of radio interviews, and one of the things I have highlighted in my radio interviews has been looking out from my deck and seeing very large cranes working on the Alexandra skyline is quite unique, and Countdown is coming along at a great rate of knots. The new still shop and the main drag is also coming, and you may have noticed for those who are in Tarbert Street that Rory's building in Tarbert Street, and it bodes well. I mean, these are big investments in our community, and it's good to see. And as we get into the rather cold, dire days of winter, the village has a feeling of optimism about it, which I applaud and see. And Countdown's huge. That's my report, somewhat brief, because as many of you know, when I was away last week and had the unfortunate pleasure of having to drive home via the pig route on Saturday, which I would not recommend to anybody. That's good on a motorbike. You wouldn't want to be on a motorbike. So I'll move my report. And Ian will second it. All in favour? Right, members' reports. I'll start off on my left with Roger.
I've been to the usual meetings, the Creative Artists Circle, the Rural Education Board meetings, the Museum Board meetings as an observer. As Tim did, I went to the Groundswell meeting. A number of enthusiastic people there. I was surprised that even though it was arranged by Groundswell, that in fact it seemed to be focusing more on the council-owned water supplies rather than the rural supplies, the ones from the small community schemes. And I really did think that's where the emphasis would be, but it didn't happen. There was virtually no comment about that. I had a meeting with Rebecca Williams and Anna to discuss the ways in which community groups may be able to work in some cohesive or together fashion to cover administrative tasks and so on, given that so many groups are struggling to get people willing to step up, and the possibility of having some sort of face-to-face meeting of groups so that people do know who else is there in the perhaps in their own particular field. I also note that here that Aurora continue to be active in turning our power off for scheduled power outages to replace whole lines of power poles. And I suspect it's because of so much new building going on. There's a bigger demand for power supply, Conroy's Valley Road, etc. And that's my report. Thank you very much.
The Valence Cottage met a few weeks ago, actually almost a month ago, I'm looking at this now, and we were presented with some photos of the newly installed or relatively newly installed Perspex panels, which were put up as part of the staged approach to creating a space that people can enjoy without it just needing a volunteer there to open the doors on set days. Of the approach, so they're there. We are working, the committee is working towards opening for Blossom Weekend and again in Labour Weekend, possibly with some markets around that Labour Weekend one as well. Alex Community House Board meeting, the foyer plans are being revised once more due to the increased costs of building, so they're still moving forwards with those, but just taking a more staged approach, I guess. As Roger said, myself, he and Rebecca met recently to note around that. Central Lakes Trust are working on a piece around how these community groups can be better supported with those roles within them. And just last Friday, I was up the Lindis with the catchment group, regional council councillors, staff, and Mayor Tim arrived as well. And it was a really great little opportunity for the catchment group there to showcase the work that they've been doing with their MPI funding, which is removal of willows to create a, I guess, better amenity space, better flow for the river and improve the health of the river in longer term. And it was, what I wanted to say about that is it was a very interesting place for the group to bring together the councils, respective councils, and showcase what they've been doing, but also to look at where some of those opportunities lie as well. So more on that one to come.
With me, we had the burial of the unknown gold miner and it went really well. It was a great community occasion with about 300 people there supporting, and it was amazing how much people got involved, even to the sexton and the other gentleman that filled the grave later had carefully put little stones all around it, similar to the one that was in the Clutha. And I heard about another gentleman the next day, a gold miner, who went back with a bottle of fine gold and sprinkled it on his grave. So it was a really lovely thing. I also attended the council meeting on the 1st of June, and I think the Plan Change 19 is a combination of a huge amount of work by our planning team and everyone else involved. It's been huge. Well done. we adopted the 2022-23 annual plan, civil defence emergency management strategy, and the development of a bridge strategy. And the situation of our bridges over Central Otago is quite incredibly inexpensive to bring them into line with what they should be. So we adopted the development of a bridge strategy, requiring some quite comprehensive work. And for me, that's all at the moment. Thank you.
I attended the Planning and Regulatory Portfolio Pre-Agenda Leads meeting, and also the CODC business meeting that Martin and Lindley mentioned. We've had an outbreak of COVID in the rest home, so that's created a lot of additional work for all the staff, along with the current staffing pressures that we've been having. Thankfully, the health board stepped up and sent us some nurses and healthcare assistants that are organised to assist homes in these type of situations. So we're managing to get by, but more than half of the residents have had COVID at the same time. So it's been quite busy there. And Castlewood has sold to Presbyterian Support, and they take over. To Presbyterian Support, they own Ranu and a number of other homes around the region. And they've said their plan in 3 to 5 years is to build retirement village units on the site. So I don't know whether that includes knocking down the current building or whether they're going to maintain that and build a few units.
Very small hallways.
It's like a bit worrying. That was me.
Thank you. I'll move those members' reports. Seconder, Lindley, in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Please note the date of the next meeting.
No, government report.
Oh, sorry, status reports. Status reports, pages 78 through to 90 something. 99. Just one thing I did notice that the Molyneux turf hole, that is, I'm just trying to find it now, so I read it earlier. Submissions to the wrong, yes, it was about regarding page 89. There have been some meetings back in November. I was aware of that. There's do we know why? Please.
So we did meet, I think in August last year, and talked to them about what's there, and they have engaged. They engaged somebody late last year to do might have been a feasibility study. I remember, and they were quick to they rang up a lot of people involved with it. We haven't heard any more since. Lots of that person's work.
Can we take it off hold in case it ends up like the bottom line?
Well, it's not a case of it's only on hold because my understanding is because Gordon and staff have not received any further.
When we get something, we will inform you of that. It's not mean that doesn't mean it's closed.
Am I?
Do we need to be contacting sometimes just to check that everything's okay with these people?
Would that be appropriate through the chair? To maybe give them a bit of a tick up, see what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions about status reports? I'll move we accept them. Second it. Hannah, all in favour? Against, carried. Note the date of the next meeting. For Russell. I'm supposed to have done that very early in the piece.
Now that you're done to.
Yes, I've got a motion that Roger would like to put.
Okay, I would like to move, well, put it as a note rather than a motion. The Vincent Community Board wishes to thank Russell Garbutt for his contribution to the board over the past 6 years.
That note will go into minutes. Do I have a second one? Thank you. Okay. All in favour? Done. Right. Resolutions to public, I'll move it. And we'll second it. All in favour, aye. Move the minutes of the, hang on.
Down.
Just checking everybody else.